Hello my friend, I hope this video finds you well. A few days ago I posted up a video taking a look at LANDR's new AI Composer plugin, and it's certainly got people talking. It's very clear that a lot of people are super passionate about AI and music and the effect of AI on music. So rather than just respond to the comments individually, I thought I'd take a bunch of them and talk about them and respond to them in this video. So let's dive straight in. Okay, so first off, Jacob Stanley 393 had this to say.
Any musician who is actively legitimizing the use of AI is basically just guaranteeing the end of their career, because as soon as this stuff is used for everything, there won't be a need for artists, will there?
So it's an interesting point, and one that I think is shared by quite a lot of people. It reminds me quite a lot of when I moved to London just over 20 years ago now, in pursuit of my musical career. And around the same time, sort of 2004, 2005, was like when the floor completely collapsed out of the music industry. Suddenly, all the labels and the pathway which I'd observed for the last kind of 10 years in terms of moving from gigging around London and around the UK and being in a successful band to then getting a deal and doing an album, all of that pathway had just been eradicated, and myself and a lot of my friends just found ourselves sitting on MySpace with some Friend Blaster software, just sending stuff out, building websites, doing all the DIY stuff, going out busking, hustling, doing the gigs, flyering, trying to get people to the gigs, create a following, doing all the right stuff. But there just wasn't any way anymore to make any money out of music at that time. And everything was in kind of disarray. The industry didn't know what was going on. The industry was ill prepared for file sharing. It was ill prepared for streaming. And it just felt like the whole thing collapsed out of the music industry. And that's kind of what this AI narrative reminds me of now, that viewpoint of fear that AI is just going to take everything over and collapse the whole music industry. No one's ever going to be musicians anymore. No one's going to really understand the value of music anymore. And the reality is, 20 years on from what happened with music and the music industry back then, is that stuff changed. Yet it's different. Is it better? Is it worse? I just think it's different. And the people, myself included, and a lot of my friends and colleagues just evolved along with it, that we did different stuff and adapted. I also think, secondly, most of my friends who are professional musicians make the bulk of their income from live, whether that's playing individually, stuff like weddings and special events, or even busking. Also working in covers and tribute bands, and also in original bands too, and touring. And those friends that work professionally within live music, and myself personally, have found that live music has maintained a kind of newfound energy since the pandemic. After the pandemic, people were really super hungry to get back to live music, and I feel that's definitely, at the very least, maintained. But I also think that the impact of AI and the impact of AI on social media and the impact of social media have all compounded to help boost live music. I think people are still super hungry to see live stuff. I've seen a lot of posts recently about people talking about why aren't there any bands anymore. People are hungry to go and see bands and live music. Just look at what happened when Oasis announced that they were coming back for a select number of gigs next year. People went literally mad for it. That's certainly not an indication of an industry on its knees, and let's hope that the hunger for live music continues to grow and grow. And the other big area that I know a lot of my friends work in is teaching, whether that's online, whether that's one-to-one, whether that's working with councils and communities and getting into schools. Not AI teaching, but one-to-one, real people with other people, showing kids how to play guitars, how to play piano, how to arrange music. Teaching is still very much required, it's still very much paid for, and it's still very much a viable career opportunity within the music industry. So there's two sectors that I do currently work in, and I do also use bits and pieces of AI software to help me out, to speed up the process. Now, I don't feel like it's devaluing or guaranteeing the end of my career. Currently, what I feel like is it's assisting me and helping me out when I work on my own, freelancing, and helping me to speed up the process. Now, to give a bit of a flip side to the argument, a few years back I was working on the side creating stock music, and it was something I started doing really post-pandemic, so I would say towards the end of 2020, and after about 18 months of doing that, I kind of had a decision to make whether I was going to carry on doing this or I was going to focus entirely on stock music. I didn't want to continue doing the both next to each other. It was just too stressful. And I kind of had a good look at the industry and felt like AI was going to start to encroach on stock music before any other area or genre in the music industry. Stock music can be rather predictable and formulaic, and it felt like the AI engines would go after that first. And indeed, quite recently, Pond 5, which I think is pretty much the world's biggest distributor of stock music and a whole bunch of other licensable media, I got, along with I think just about everybody else that was on Pond 5, who'd opted in a sizable amount from an AI company who were buying up the human-made stock music to analyze with their AI computers. So I would imagine very soon, if not already, there's going to be AI-generated stock music sites where you can pay for a subscription. You can type in and say, I want some Halloween scary music with this in it, that word in it, I want some violins and I want that in it, and it's going to churn it out in about 2 or 3 minutes or quicker, and you're going to pay your subscription and you're going to have that piece of music. And of course it's going to be license free. You don't have to worry about it because it's a complete one-off that's been generated by AI. So that's the flip side of the argument, in that AI has certainly taken a huge wedge out of the stock music industry, and that was for quite some time a legitimate path to earn, if not a full living, certainly a pretty decent income, or certainly a little bit of money on the side for jobbing musicians. But, and here's the really big but, as I mentioned at the start of this video, if you want to be, if you aspire to be, if you are a full-time creative artist, really no matter what industry you work in, one thing you're going to have to learn is how to adapt and overcome. So as someone that uses bits and pieces of AI and would also use that Lando Composer plugin, as I mentioned when I reviewed it, I liked it, it gave me inspiration. That's what I really digged about it. Do I feel like I'm guaranteeing the end of my career as of today? Absolutely not. Will AI adapt? Will it continue to have an impact on the music industry? Will we have to continue adapting and changing and overcoming? Absolutely. None of us, of course, know what the future holds, but I do know that we're better off adapting and changing with positivity than living in fear of a potential future that hasn't happened yet. Hello, my friend. Just interrupting this video for a moment to ask you a question. Are you fed up creating underwhelming mixes that just don't stand out on sites like Spotify? If that sounds familiar, I've got some good news. I've created a course just for you. It's called Pro Mix Method and it's free. It's going to teach you how to create a solid foundation for your mix so you can leave frustration at the door and start getting the results that you deserve. The link for the free course Pro Mix Method is just below this video.
No serious musician will ever use this.
I suppose the way I feel about it is that, well, I've been a professional musician for over 20 years. I've been playing guitar for over 30 years. I've done a lot of different jobs, learned a few different instruments to adapt over the years. I now play piano professionally. I've always sung through that time as well. Done a whole load of teaching, a whole load of gigs, been in a whole load of bands. Now, of course, I run Real Home Studio, and I still continue to perform in a tribute in the UK. Now, I don't think I go around necessarily telling people that I was a serious musician, but I am certainly a professional musician, and I would use that plugin. So I guess that's where I'd have to disagree with that comment. I would use primarily that plugin right now, the Composer plugin, because I work so much in teaching and pretty much all my time is spent taking up my work time during the week with Real Home Studio. And then when I'm gigging, it's typically maybe one day of the weekend, and there's quite a lot of traveling involved with that too. And then all my other time is spent with my family and doing life stuff. So there's not an awful amount of time in my life for writing songs and composing music, something that I used to love. And in all honesty, at the moment, when I come to compose or think about songwriting, I usually hit a block after about 30 minutes or an hour where I start to feel kind of a bit guilty because I should be getting on really with work. When I'm up in the studio, I'm working, testing out mics, trying stuff out, doing reviews, making videos like this one, and pushing my business and pushing Real Home Studio forward. and that takes a lot of time. So when I'm doing anything else to do with music, I feel like really it's not the time and the place. And I had a really good run of songwriting and releasing albums and working with bands when I was younger. So the nice thing is with that composer plugin is primarily it's a bit of a road for me back to fun. The other thing that I struggle a bit with, the serious musician thing, is for me music and art and acting and anything that's any creative outlet that people want to do, is that I always feel like it's a free club for anyone to join of any level. So the whole kind of, are you a serious musician? How good are you at it? Are you, what's this guy doing over here? Is that not good enough? I don't like the way that guy's works. I don't agree with using this or that. I think is a bit contentious and a bit elitist, and I just can't connect with that, because for me, music is still joy and an outlet for so many people. The other issue I have with the kind of pointing fingers about whether someone was a serious musician because they're using a certain piece of equipment is that historically, certainly through, say, the last 100 years, we've gone through this time and time again. I mentioned earlier about the early 2000s, and I remember the same conversation being had about AI now, being had about autotune, and that no serious musicians, no decent singers should be using autotune. Well, now the reality is autotune is part of the process throughout the industry. It's just regarded as something that is done. The skill of using autotune is still a little bit of a grey area, but it's become the industry norm. And then we can go further back and say, well, what about sampling? People were up in arms about sampling, and how no serious musician would need to take samples from another musician. And then I can go back to a whole bunch of my LPs from the 70s downstairs, where you'll take the sleeve out and you'll have inside that taping is killing the music industry. In fact, often you'll see a skull and crossbones over the top of the tape and say, piracy and cassette recording is the end. If you do this, you're contributing to the end of the music industry. And then you can go back and without wanting to sound kind of too pedantic, if you think of an artist like Leadbelly, who really had a phenomenal memory for music and would remember everyone else's songs that they were singing, and it was only Leadbelly really that got the opportunity to record all of these songs that he'd collated and remembered in his head, and he had the opportunity to record them and lay them down under his name. Well, technically, you could argue that Leadbelly wasn't a serious musician, because in a way he's acting like an AI company, just dragging the songs off people, remembering it, and then regurgitating it in his own way for people to consume for his own benefit.
Surely music can be fun as well. I work with a band and do this sort of stuff as well. Keeps me off the booze and drugs.
I think when you're working professionally or seriously with music, and everything does get more serious, and stresses get added when you're either recording music or you're making money from music, it can be really easy to forget that music originally, when we all got into music, started either listening to music and then learning an instrument and how to work with music, was fun and should be fun. I think that's a very, very important reminder as we kind of get bogged down in trying to predict what's going to happen with AI in the future. And possibly even more important than that is the comment about it keeping you away from some of the poisons of life. Music is so powerful, and to be a musician is such a privilege, and for a lot of people it's a real lifeline. I have heard a lot of people say, I don't know where I'd be without music. I know a lot of people that use it for therapy, me included, that it keeps them on the straight and narrow, gives them a reason to be, something to do, an outlet at the very least. But also, as Evie Ruth commented, it keeps them from going too far down a road with booze and drugs. I guess what I'm saying is, collectively, as musicians, we have to remember the joy and the fun and the passion of music, and not get overwhelmed and too bogged down in surmising on what we think AI may or may not contribute negatively to our industry. The bottom line is, I did genuinely have fun using that composer plugin the other day. I'm definitely going to use it again in the future too. I quite like the idea of seeing what I can create with it and seeing what avenue that might take me down, and it just might end up being something which I end up working with quite a lot. I really don't know. I could also say, as I said in the review, that my 10-year-old son had a great time using it, and it's the first time he's really connected with the concept of composing music, and that's another thing which I think that particular plugin is really great for. Right, I think that's enough of me talking. I want to hear from you. I know it's a passionate topic, so let me know what you think about what I've talked about in this video today. Let me also know what you think about the Lando Composer plugin, what you think about some of the comments. I'm super grateful for you guys dropping on the video the other day. That's allowed me to explore them today. If you enjoyed this video today, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Liking and subscribing really helps me out, helps me to keep creating more videos like this, helps Real Home Studio to keep going. And if you enjoyed this video today, you definitely want to check this next one out.